Welcome to NYC Now, your source for local news in and around New York City from WNYC. It's Thursday, July 24th. Here's the Midday News from Veronica Del Valle.
New York City's Summer Streets program is back and bigger than ever. For 5 consecutive Saturdays starting this weekend, the city will ban cars from more than 22 miles of roadway across the boroughs. From 7 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, people can walk, bike, and participate in other free activities like fitness events and art installations. The series kicks off in Queens and Staten Island. There will be open streets on Vernon Boulevard from 44th to 30th Drives and on Forest Avenue from Broadway to Bard Avenue. Prospect Park's popular LeFrak Center at Lakeside is almost ready to reopen. It's been closed to the public for its first major renovation since opening in 2013. It now features improvements to its lighting, restrooms, cafe, children's splash pad, and its biggest attraction, the roller rink and ice skating rinks. Programming will now include pickleball and yoga. The LeFrak Center officially reopens on August 2nd. And the Brooklyn Public Library of Performing Arts is turning 60 this year. To celebrate the anniversary, the library is hosting a number of events in partnership with Lincoln Center, which is right next door. The series is called Living Library, celebrating 60 years. It will feature events like film screenings, reading parties, silent discos, and more. The library says all ages are welcome. The series is happening until July 27th. 85 degrees outside and sunny right now, a high of 87 today. Tonight, mostly clear, a low around 75. Tomorrow, dangerously hot, a slim chance of late afternoon showers and thunderstorms, mostly sunny, 96, but feeling like 103.
Stay close. There's more after the break.
NYC. I'm Sean Carlson for WNYC. It's time for Politics Brief, our weekly segment where we break down the news out of City Hall and across New York State. This week, we have one candidate out of the country and a big development in next year's race for governor. To break it down, we're joined by WNYC's Jimmy Vielkind in Albany and WNYC's Elizabeth Kim right here in downtown Manhattan. All right, Liz, we're going to start with you. Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani is in Uganda. I think that's a first in city politics, no?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly the first time it's certainly not, I should say, the first time a candidate has taken a break from the campaign. In 2021, Eric Adams went to Monaco for 4 days. That actually didn't come out until Politico reported it. Adams also traveled to Africa, the country of Ghana, to be specific, after he won the general election. That was what he called a spiritual journey, but some people may remember that was one of the trips that federal prosecutors investigated for these questionable upgrades that Adams received from Turkish Airlines. But yes, getting back to Mamdani, he put out a video on Sunday saying that he was going to Uganda so that he and his wife can spend some time with his family.
Okay.
Now, just remember, Mamdani's parents are ethnically Indian, but his father's family goes back generations in Uganda. Mamdani himself was born in Uganda, and he lived in Africa until he was around 7.
Now, Liz, I know this isn't a politics trip, but everything is kind of political when you've got politicians involved. Yeah. I remember it used to be that New York politicians would do what they said was the 3 I's: Italy, Israel, and Ireland, sort of a nod to those big voting blocks in New York City. Is this like a new touchstone that nods to the African diaspora?
Well, yes, and I think it speaks to Mamdani's sort of complex identity, right? Like he is poised to become the first South Asian mayor of New York City. And on the campaign trail, he's really weaved his identity and specifically his ties to Uganda into his biography. I think cynically, you might wonder, is this an opportunity for him to remind voters, particularly black voters, of this connection to Africa? Sure. But I also think it's fair to take Mamdani at face value and say that he really does want to introduce his wife to the place he was born.
Yeah. All right. Well, what about the other candidates? We're now about a week from when Andrew Cuomo declared that he was going to really actively be campaigning this time around. How's that going?
Well, we have these videos that essentially show Cuomo doing what people say he didn't do enough of during the primary, which is talking to voters, kind of, what they say, pressing the flesh. And more importantly, getting these interactions on social media. Here's a few seconds of a recent video he put out where he's on the Upper West Side.
How are you?
Good luck.
How's it going? Hi, Andrew. How are you?
So nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
You hear that really upbeat music?
Yeah.
So, Jimmy, what I want to ask you is, this is the kind of thing that Zohran Mamdani did to great effect. How do you think Cuomo did? Did he come off natural? Is he in his natural element here?
No, he's very far from his natural habitat.
Okay.
It's not how he is. His team for years has always worked to keep him out of unscripted settings, away from wild humans. He was panned during the primary campaign for not being more vigorously active. So, I guess this is a response. It's also interesting, Liz, I watched that video and I was randomly on the phone with an elected official who told me that he was in the diner that Andrew Cuomo visited that appears in that video, the Metro Diner on the Upper West Side. And this elected official told me that the people who Cuomo shook hands with, who were sitting at the table, they had been sitting there and said, well, we're here, we're waiting for Andrew Cuomo. So, I don't think we should assume that all of this is perfectly spontaneous.
No, not at all. And I think it speaks to the fact that, the bigger question is, when does Cuomo more broadly give reporters this invitation to watch these interactions? Because the most successful video for a candidate is one taken by a reporter on the trail watching those interactions.
Yeah. Now, Jimmy, I know that we're still more than a year out, but there was a pretty big development in the race for governor, right? This one was on the GOP side. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah. Well, Republicans feel like Kathy Hochul, the incumbent governor, is weak. They're tolling all Democrats with as far left socialists based on Mamdani's primary win. And so, in previous years, the GOP has really struggled to find a candidate. I think in 2018, they kind of went through and passed the potato before they settled on Mark Molinaro, who later became a congressman and is now the federal rail administrator. But this time, there's been kind of a staring contest between two pretty prominent members of the New York City congressional delegation. The New York State congressional delegation. That's Mike Lawler, who's from the lower Hudson Valley, and Elise Stefanik, who's from the North Country. This morning, Lawler said he's not going to run for governor. He waved off a bid, and he's instead going to seek re-election to his seat. Now, his district, like I said, it's based in Rockland County, and it's pretty competitive. So GOP leaders in Washington, including Donald Trump, who met with Lawler before he made this announcement, have urged him not to run for re-election. And so here's what Lawler said about it on Fox and Friends.
My seat was determinative of control of the House back in 2022 and again in 2024. I'm one of only 3 Republicans that won a seat that Kamala Harris also won. Keeping the House majority is critical if we are going to continue to move this economy in the right direction.
So there are about a dozen Democrats, 12, who are seeking Lawler's seat. And Kathy Hochul today, she mocked Lawler. Here's what she told reporters on Long Island.
Apparently he doesn't have the courage to stand up to me or to Donald Trump. I'm not surprised. But all I know is that not only will he not be governor, he won't be a congressman for much longer.
Ooh.
So, yeah, it's still 2025, but the shots are firing already in this race.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jimmy, what does this mean about Stefanik? Is she definitely running?
Not definitely.
Okay.
That's sort of the other thing here. She issued a statement today praising Lawler, again attacking Hochul, who Stefanik describes as the worst governor in America. But folks close to her have maintained all along that she is going to take a look at the election results in November. She's going to weigh the full situation before she fully makes up her own mind and makes her own announcement. So this is some kind of a consolation prize of sorts. She was nominated, listeners might remember, to be Trump's ambassador to the United Nations. But he scuttled that bid and pulled her name back because Republicans were so concerned about that very close margin in the House of Representatives. So now it seems like Trump did Stefanik a solid in helping to nudge Lawler out of the way, even though there are Republican analysts in New York who say that perhaps Lawler was the stronger candidate because he was a little bit more moderate. He had a greater degree of separation from Trump and from the MAGA wing of the party. And given the demographics in New York, they say you're going to need that. So I'm not sure that being the candidate who was getting air support from Donald Trump is going to be that's not going to be necessarily the best thing for Stefanik going forward. Polls show that even though Trump was born here, raised here, was a developer here, he just isn't particularly politically popular.
Well, you know who is popular? The WNYC politics team, and we're very glad that you guys have joined us yet again. WNYC's Elizabeth Kim in Manhattan and Jimmy Vielkind from Albany. Thanks so much to you both.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks for listening. This is NYC Now from WNYC. Catch us every weekday, 3 times a day for your top news headlines and occasional deep dives. And subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. More soon